People who grew up poor, what did you used to think was normal? I still think the concept of family road trips is super weird, like it's only something I know from movies. I didn't leave my province until I was 22 with my friend. When I went to rich kids' houses, I was in awe of the kitchen pantry. You mean, you can walk into it? How many different cereals do you have? What's Costco? Oh shit, almost forgot. Going to pawn shops. Shopping at thrift shops. It wasn't until I got to high school that no one else shopped there, or the fact that a lot of our stuff came second-hand markets and things like that. Ketchup sandwiches. Ketchup spaghetti sauce. Ketchup soup. Having sleep for dinner. Skipping lunch, dinner periodically so one of us could have all 3 meals. Like, Tuesdays plus Thursday plus Sunday I didn't eat dinner but my mom plus little brother did, and every other day my mom didn't eat lunch or dinner so me and my brother could. I only started skipping meals for my mom because she was getting physically sick from not eating. My mom having to buy a new 3000 car every couple of years because our previous one broke down and we don't have enough to repair it. Coming home to see the water, electricity were off. Having to buy jugs of water at the dollar store so we could flush the toilet. Leaving a giant hole in the entryway where water had leaked through because we just couldn't afford to repair it. Not having heat, AC. Having to bath with water from jugs, plus waking up and realizing our washing machine had broken down again, so I'd rub my dirty clothes with washing detergent to try and mask the stale scent clothing gets when it hasn't been washed to this day. People making comments about something smelling weird even if not directed at me makes me have major anxiety attacks. Only having one pair of super cheap shoes that we'd have to wear until they fell apart. The amount of times I tripped over the soles of my own shoes in my HS hallways was ridiculous. I was totally shocked when I learned that some people go out to eat more than once a year. Also when I learned there are people who don't skip meals. Growing up, whenever winter came we used to pull all of the blankets out of the closet and bundle up at night. We didn't have working heat and most nights it would go way below freezing. I always looked forward to it though and would love getting gathered up in a million blankets and sit next to the space heater. I also shared a small room with both my sisters and slept on one twin bed with them. My brothers did the same in the room across from us. Everyone in the house going into the kitchen to see what groceries were brought home and being so excited as if it was Christmas. Also, now that my family is doing a lot better than when I was growing up, we find ourselves hoarding food, stocking up on canned goods, buying things in bulk on sale as if we are waiting for those rainy days to hit again. Does anyone else experience this? Going on vacation to the local hotel in our hometown, we got to play in the pool and order delivery pizza, a rare treat, and we always had a blast. I'm female, if it matters. My family's budget fluctuated a lot. In our poorer years, I thought it was normal to wear my brother's hand-me-downs and make them last as long as possible, like, until my pants were so short that 3 or so inches of my ankles were showing. Gotta make those clothes last 10 years at least. Also, when my dad started making enough money that he could splurge and buy steak, I thought steak was nasty. Turns out, my dad could only afford the cheapest, gnarliest cut of steak possible. Basically, I would chew and chew only to have it turn to meat gum in my mouth. It was totally inedible, so I wondered why all the wealthier families liked steak so much. I grew up thinking food was a scarcity. Whenever we went anywhere, my mom would tell me and my sisters to not accept food from people. She didn't want our hunger to be someone else's burden. Now that I'm in college and go places like my boyfriend's family's house, it's seen as rude to refuse food. My automatic response is to politely refuse even if I hadn't eaten all day. Even after years and now being able to mostly get by myself, it still sometimes feels like being hungry is a normal state. I sometimes still forget to eat. My stomach will tell me I'm hungry, but because it was so ingrained in me that hunger is normal, I typically won't realize I'm hungry until I get a headache. My mom didn't have a bedroom for a couple years. Our place had 2. I got one and my sisters got the other. It never occurred to me where she slept. Living room. Never traveling out of the country or state. Kids always talked about where they traveled, like during break, summer vacation for example. Getting gifts from the Salvation Army. Layaway for school clothes. Fares for free school supplies. Mom and dad working 2 jobs. Sharing everything. I never saw my parents because they worked so much. When I was in elementary school, we lived in an apartment above the bar they owned. My time with them was spent working in the kitchen, doing homework at the bar, and then walking upstairs to put myself to bed. We eventually moved and I was always alone. From Wednesday morning through Saturday, I would wake and walk to school, come home, make dinner, do homework, and go to bed with no contact from an adult. This continued throughout secondary school. From 6th through 12th grade, I was so incredibly lonely, but it was normal for me. I can't imagine how my world would have been different if they didn't need to work so much to scrape by. Coming home from school to find that our water or electricity was turned off and my dad rushing home to turn it on himself, which is illegal. Not going to lie, I had to do that once. Several weeks earlier I was working at a demolition site and for whatever reason, pulled a dead meter and took it home with me. When I get home I found my power was cut off as my wife and I were dealing with some financial problems. I carefully cut the seal, swapped meters, and put a dab of super glue on the seal. I figured if I got caught and I fully expected to I could claim ignorance. This was 2005. In 2014 I got a knock on the door. A contractor tells me that they were replacing the old analog style meters with new wireless ones. My address wasn't showing an active account. I feigned ignorance saying this was my girlfriend's place. But I'll look into it. The contractor tells me that we need to get it worked out because he has to have all these swapped out by the end of the week. Had a 9-year run, couldn't be upset. Went legit and genuinely thought they would come after us for 9 years of power. I don't suggest anyone try this, because this was a source of anxiety for a long time before and after. Kinda still is. Hello, this is your power company. We were suspicious about your power for the last 9 years but could not risk making any assumptions until we had found proof of your criminal activity. We would like to thank you for finally providing this incriminating evidence. Please wait by the front door for the law enforcement officers who are currently en route to your home. Sincerely, General Electric. I always thought knowing about bills and the bill's amount was normal for a kid, also knowing the rent amount. I went over to a well-off friend's nice home and asked what was their rent amount was. I thought everyone was supplied breakfasts at elementary school, and the people who didn't eat it just didn't have breakfast for some reason. I didn't understand breakfast until my mom married a guy who was rich enough to rent a house. I knew it wasn't normal, but we didn't have heat or air conditioning in my house. We used a wood stove and the oven to heat the first floor and the second floor was usually freezing. When the weather turned hot, we were just hot. Only having lunch at school, like that being the only meal of the day. I learned when I was like 10. Then I started saving my food and bringing it home so my brother and sister could eat. Cleaning your plate. I honestly still do. If I pay for food I'm gonna eat it all, and if not, I will save it. So many people I've eaten with will leave food and it's just disposed of. Hell, my stepdad didn't realize that for 14 years. Leftovers. Trash nah. My mother single-handedly raised 2 boys. We don't waste shit. As a kid I didn't know there were multiple settings on a water heater. I assumed everybody had to wait an hour or so after somebody uses the shower to get some hot water going. I am embarrassed to admit that I recently found out about continuous flow of hot water 5 years ago. I was 25. I spent the weekend at my then future in-law's house. The conversation went something like this. Fiancé, I'm going to shower before dinner. Me, but your brother just got out 5 minutes ago. Fiancé explains how they never run out of hot water. My mind was blown. I thought one pair of shoes was normal till the 10th grade. 7 to 14 years old. Going to school then going to work. After school delivering newspapers and also collecting the payments. Never a day off. One time we had so much snow that the post office closed, yet my little ass had to deliver. Latchkey kid at 10 years old because parents worked. Being a girl, I was also responsible for cooking dinner for my father and older brothers and other household chores. I was also expected to excel at school. I did. My schedule was so strict. One thing I hated the most was science fairs. All the rich kids had so much help and confidence. Then there was me with a piece of cardboard. Loads of stress and anxiety. For my school's Spirit Week, They had a thrift shop day, where most everyone dressed in old ratty clothes, or the weirdest stuff they could find in a thrift shop. Needless to say, as someone whose clothes were 80% second-hand, it was an eye-opener. A bit shitty of the school to have a day like that. Using regular bread instead of hot dog and hamburger buns. Mason jars for cups. It's more normal now, but 25 years ago, not so much. When I was about 15, my family went from being dirt poor to closer to stable but still under the poverty line. But, from 4 to 15, these were things my family did that I didn't realize were abnormal. Not seeing my parents for 10 to 14 hours out of my day, because they were working as hard as they could manage. Starting work at the age of 10, because my parents owned a business and couldn't afford employees. Saving every last scrap of leftover food and using it to make something else. Finding my friends' lives of cool toys and yearly vacations to be luxurious and fairy tale-esque. Now I'm living relatively comfortably. But man, if these aren't still something I think about.